Our interview will focus on Shalini Shah. She is an academic practice anesthesiologist who is working in Southern California, and her specialty is in pain. Welcome, Shalini. We appreciate you having dedicated a little bit of time for our leadership interview series. So, if you wouldn't mind, just to start out this segment, would you speak a little bit about your career path and offer up some highlights?
Sure. Thanks for having me, guys. Um, completed my residency in anesthesia at Cornell, and then a fellowship in adult and pediatric pain at the Harvard hospitals. So the adult portion was at the Brigham and BI, and the pediatric portion was at Children's of Boston. And then I came back to California, and I was in the private practice mindset. I had absolutely no taste buds for academic medicine, and it kind of fell on my lap. The chair at the time was looking for a pediatric pain specialist here at UC Irvine, and it just, even then I was saying, Dr. Kane, I don't think this is for me, but I gave it a try. I said, let's see where it goes after a few years. So that's a little bit about my journey. I've been at UC Irvine my entire career, which I can't believe it's almost 10 years now. Um, from directing the pediatric pain service, I moved to the fellowship, so assistant program director for the pain medicine fellowship, and then moved into the division chief role for the pain medicine division, and then vice chair for the Department of Anesthesia. So that's where I'm at now. So that's a little bit about my career. And I tell you one thing that I've learned, and I think most people feel the same way, is you think it's going to be a straight and narrow path, and it kind of things that you don't think are going to happen to you. And that just maintaining a flexible mindset is the most important thing.
A lot of our career paths aren't really straight lines, and
Yeah.
there are a lot of undulations along that journey. And I imagine that you actually have a front row seat in terms of how healthcare is just changing so rapidly, right? And specifically for our profession, you found yourself pretty fond of mentorship, and you've grown to appreciate the value of mentorship, not only of the mentors that you've had, but your role as a mentor. Can you speak to that a little bit for us?
It comes in all flavors. Mentorship, sponsorship comes in all flavors. It's not one person who's going to drive your career or a person that you think is going to be responsible for your trajectory. It's taking as many inputs, as many neural inputs as you can to form a picture. One of the things that I've realized is that there is quite a bit of mentorship that occurs in academic medicine at the front end of your career, right? Your first 5 years, everyone thinks of you as this shiny unicorn, and they put a lot of energy, a lot of effort in it. Then you're at the tail end of your career, and there's a lot of opportunities that open up. But it's that middle class, it's that mid-career faculty that really get overlooked, that really do need the most help to go from the assistant to the associate level, from the associate to the full professor level. And there's not a lot of resources there. And I can tell you from my perspective, it, I have mentors from healthcare economics that you would think, how does that even apply to your day-to-day academic trajectory? But you never know where someone's going to give you ideas and to steer you in a different mind path than you thought is even possible.
You have a very strong feeling towards mentorship, and you're able to kind of really drill down about some of those concepts and how it can actually be expanded and adapted not only to the post training but also the training environment.
And you know where that came from? That really came from CSA. I joined CSA at very, very early in my career, probably at the second or third year out of training. And so it was really at the urgence of Paul Yost, Mark Zukowski, that body of presidents that said, why don't you join organized medicine and just sit and see what we're all about? Learned about the extensive culture that CSA has on mentorship, fostering leadership, and really bringing people up. I've never seen any organization. I sit on 4 boards of 4 different medical societies. This is the only organization, I'm really speaking from the heart, that really has an ingrained culture of moving people up and teaching them skill sets that, quite honestly, I learned a lot much more from CSA than I did in business school about all these soft skill sets. This organization is unlike any other.
You nailed another, highlight in terms of, you don't have to really find this in your workplace necessarily. You have to find
Yeah.
it in some association, wherever you really find this type of inspiration, right? And I think it's important that people understand that too. So you mentioned that you're in business school, and while we're on the topic of mentorship, I mean, how does business school and how does your role in leadership in academic medicine play a part in how you view mentoring?
Through that journey, I've learned a lot about teams, team building, um, you know, giving opportunities, finding opportunities where they may not exist for people who are junior to you, and then learning how to sit in a meeting and just zip it.
I think there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, it's a little bit counterintuitive. I think that's what you're trying to
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
Because I think that if we have great ideas, we really want to share it, right? And we feel that that's how we want to contribute more in a meeting. What is your vision of a perfect anesthesiologist workplace? And what does that look like?
That is an incredible, incredible question. I'll tell you why. Over the last really 3 months, and I would say even since COVID, one of the things I've learned is that bad leadership is so visible. Healthcare and anesthesia practices and anesthesia departments are under the greatest threats we've ever seen. We've got the mid-level threats. We've got threats of furloughing, cutting hours, cutting salaries. It's not a joke. It's a reality. And just because you're in academic medicine doesn't mean you're insulated from all of these realities. One of the things that's important to me, and I'm getting the sense that it's important. This is probably one of the top three things that are important to most anesthesiologists, is having leadership that puts their neck out and steps up and is not afraid to cut through the, for lack of a better word, the BS, and talk frankly and talk directly and go into leadership meetings and advocate for your faculty, advocate for the rank and file anesthesiologist that's working every day and putting their life on the line.
Let's just say that you've just finished residency and you're a junior staff attending. Um, how can they actually become better advocates for our profession?
One of the things that I see very commonly nowadays is that work ethic goes so far in medicine. That's one of the things I've learned is that hard work never goes unvalued in medicine. It may not pay off today or tomorrow or a year from now, but somewhere down your line, down your trajectory, that hard work that you put in will pay off. And that's the one thing I want to stress to this new generation is that they need to come up and show up to work with a different attitude, a different sense of accountability, not looking at the clock and not being a clock, time card puncher, but really saying, let's do the best cases. Let's make a very detailed pre-op plan, intra-op plan, post-op plan, and think things out. What are the things that could occur and what are the physiological parameters that would change my anesthetic? Because you can't deliver substandard anesthesia and you can't deliver time-based anesthesia where at 5 o'clock I'm out.
That's a great sharing point. How do we create the culture where they can actually embrace the culture that you recently described, right? Um, what do you think about that?
That's a great question. I'll tell you one of the things I've seen over the last few years of the residents coming out and looking for jobs. And I'm heavily involved with recruitment, and that's why I can say this. Um, is that some candidates come out and they tell me that, Dr. Shaw, by 1 year, I want to be here. In 3 years, I want to be program director. In 5 years, I want to be chair of the department. And I'm just astonished that people have this trajectory in mind of how their or vision in mind of how their life is going to play out when I can't even figure out what I'm going to wear tomorrow morning, and let alone they've got this entire trajectory planned out for 5 years. So that type of thinking, I think, is good, but perhaps like you used the word pivoting into looking at how can you deliver value to you and your colleagues is probably a better way of looking at your trajectory or career path rather than just focusing on me and where I want to be and what I want to do.
I really like what you said about leadership, Shalini. If you could add anything else to leadership, I mean, what does the word leadership to you mean? Are there any other facets to it that you'd love to add?
Yeah, one of the things that it's really important for everyone to recognize is that it's very important to have a leader that puts their neck out and advocates for the group, for the department, what have you. But also realize in that process, the leader has only so much political capital to burn. And they're burning a lot of capital every time they go and advocate on our behalf.
when you go into this profession, there's room to grow, and you're not in a fixed line, right? And
Yeah.
it's just to kind of pick up the mindset that things will change. Sometimes things are great, and sometimes they're not. To be honest, and as a result, it takes a little bit of resilience, but also kind of what you've described, um, finding some mentorship and folks that will be your advocate as much as you will be advocate for your peers and yourself,
Mm.
right? So in summary, can you give us a few pearls in your career path? And mind you, we're targeting folks that are a little bit earlier in their career, and give them some hints in terms of what should they focus on besides, okay, we want to work hard. We want to find a culture where we can actually participate, not only in speaking, but also learning from the background. Um, what else do you have to share with us?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I've been very fortunate. I've had a fantastic chair who gave me a lot of opportunity. That being said, one of the things that I would do if I were younger, and look, I will be very honest, I have female colleagues in my department who say, Dr. Shah or Shalini, I just want to be an anesthesiologist, go home and take care of my kids and have a normal family life and have that balance. But nevertheless, I think it's important that everyone at least is exposed uh, to some aspect of research, manuscript preparation, um, sitting in meetings, leading meetings, those type of things. It's even the small things you do, all the preparation that you do on the back end, that will pay off. And this is my advice to junior colleagues. Get involved with research or at least writing a paper. It's painful to write your first or second paper, but at least having that under your belt.
That's awesome. I appreciate that. And my final comment is something that we do at the end of our previous interviews. Is that I'd like to make a final ask for those that may be viewing this interview and feel that what you've said has resonated with them. And would you be willing to share your contact information so that they can actually speak to you?
It'd be my pleasure, as long as it's not public, but yes. It's within our CSA circle. Absolutely. Absolutely.